I'm very excited to chat with my friend Alexi Kenney very soon. He is one of the most exciting violinists of our generation. As a person, he is very liberal, modern, and forward thinking. I hope we can all get some fresh ideas from him. Oh, Alexi, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been really long since we played together. I really miss playing with you.
Likewise. Yeah, we did a Marlboro tour together. Was that last year? I can't even remember.
Exactly last year,
A year
about
ago,
this
right?
time maybe.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always so lovely to see like what you're doing creatively, and you have such a curiosity. So I'm really excited to see your interviews and how that's manifesting.
Music repertoire really, really heartfelt and touching. Would you mind sharing some of your thoughts about cross-genre kind of interpretation?
Yeah, well, I guess I don't necessarily see it as so disparate. I think that um, one thing that I've had, of course, a lot of time to think about, as have we all during this time, is what I am as an artist, what I am as a person, what I can contribute. I think that for our as long as we're in school and being trained by all these wonderful artists. I had and you, of course, had incredible teachers, and they came from the great traditions, and
Yeah.
so we're steeped in this world of, emulating, or at least like really just loving and respecting tradition and going in that route, which I think is incredibly important, but I guess what I've found is like I'm not sure that my role as an artist is necessarily to follow that tradition. Like I'm not going to have the most beautiful sound of my peers. I'm not going to have the most virtuosic technique of my peers, but I might have other things to offer. And I think one of these things is um, kind of just being true to myself and exploring my own little avenues wherever they might take me. And so in the past few weeks, I've been delving into some other non-classical genres, and just things that come to mind. Honestly, they're not like, I haven't made a concerted effort to be like, I want to really go cross genre, and I don't want to play whatever, every day. I'm always playing Bach. I'm always like steeped in other things, but also I love Joni Mitchell. I love Miyazaki soundtracks. So these are some of these things that I've been doing, and um, yeah, I guess I've just kind of uh, tried to follow my heart a little bit more than is maybe expected.
You're too humble. You're definitely one of the most virtuoso players, and also you're such a serious musician.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to buy expensive equipment to get a good result.
Mhm.
I think one thing that all of us should learn is how to use a program like GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools, whatever you use, Audacity, some free options that you can just, whatever microphone you're using. I'm using like $100 microphone, which is very low end
Mhm.
from what you could spend on a microphone. But
Mhm.
if you just adjust the EQ levels a little bit, if you add some reverb in there, like it sounds pretty good. And if you it's been fun for me to learn how to find the best spot in a room to record, because that makes a difference. Find the best spot for the microphone to be at. It doesn't take like a huge amount of time. It also doesn't take um, anything more than just a good ear. So you just kind of follow what your ear uh, likes to hear. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I could give is like learn how to basically adjust little things. Because even your iPhone camera, you can isolate the iPhone audio and put it into a program like GarageBand and adjust the EQ levels. You adjust the treble a little bit. You can just optimize your equipment, whatever it might be. So I would say that's and learn how to like face the light when you when
Oh,
you
I see.
make videos. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know. Just some little pretty non-complicated tricks, but you know, things that I think probably from here on out will be learning in school. You know, I'm so curious as to what a music conservatory curriculum is going to look like after this time, because likely we'll have to face a lot of these technical challenges, which I think probably we should have learned in our days as well. But
Yeah.
so I'm using it's a Canon M50. Basically, I researched like probably watched 100 hours of YouTube videos on on like um YouTubers cameras or vlogging cameras,
Mhm.
and I already had a pretty legitimate Canon camera with
Mhm.
a lens, and the lens is kind of important because if you want to get like a depth of field effect, like a blurred background,
Mhm.
then you have to find the right lens with like proper focal length and f-stop, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So you can do a little bit of research on that, but there's options that are not super expensive that
Mhm.
really, I think, you know, for me, they're worth it because I just like to see quality things and I like beautiful things. And, you know, that's, I think for me, it's worth it. And that's not to say that you can't get a beautiful shot from your iPhone, but if you do want to go the extra step, you
Mhm.
know, there are not too expensive options to look for.
Mhm. Of course, I mean, still your artistry really shine through, and I was very very impressed when you do a little bit of arrangement here there. Doesn't matter if it's box music or a pop song. You make everything so honest and true to yourself. Yeah, that
Thank
I.
you. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the key is like, I don't think that we can expect, I mean, nobody should be looking for fame or numbers or
Yeah,
engagement or whatever. Like, you know, we're not in the right field for
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I think what we can just hope to, you know, to follow ourselves and do a little bit of fun projects, and that's kind of trying to do is myself a little bit during
Mhm.
this crazy period.
Yeah. Feel like as a friend, I can tell that in life you're also very liberal, very forward thinking as well. Would you mind sharing, any of your thoughts about our world in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, at this very moment, you know, we're in such a tumultuous time in our world. I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how and if um my liberal thoughts and political beliefs and identity can really merge with what's, you know, with classical music. I struggle with that a lot, actually. And I think you know, there's like, I identify as gay. I'm like, I am very liberal. Like I have these certain traits which I think we're often taught in classical music do not intersect. Like if they intersect with our art, you've sold yourself out, or you're not you know, if you're trying to say something political with your art, you're selling Bach short, or you know, these types of things, which I honestly don't have an answer to right now. I don't know really how I sort of agree with that, and I sort of disagree with that, and I do struggle with that. Um, but in another way, I think during this time, actually, I had been thinking about starting a project, a commissioning project, before the coronavirus thing. And now that I have the time to really think about it, and with all that's happening in the world now, I think it's very important that one of the most important things we can do as artists is to, especially as classical musicians, is to support um, the creators of our art. So to commission works from now, I mean, now more than ever, not just your cisgender white male voices, compositional voices, but people from all different backgrounds and who have all different perspectives of this shared tradition. And I think that, so basically this project that I'm embarking on is I'm commissioning a song cycle for violin. Um, I call it a song cycle, but it's instrumental, with electronic elements. And I'm going to ask a bunch of different composers, from all different backgrounds to write pieces that are inspired by uh, non-classical works that they identify with strongly. So in doing that, I think it'll be so interesting to see this sort of intersection of lineages, like traditions. How do we in the present moment relate to, of course, any composer who's writing now has the lineage of classical composition, but also we're so steeped in pop culture and we have the knowledge of the 60s and the 70s and the Great American Songbook and all of these non-classical genres. And I'm just so fascinated by how people see that and what perspectives they will bring if that angle is sort of brought to the forefront. So maybe that's a way to intersect these sort of liberal free thinking ideas, um, and certainly by promoting and by commissioning and lifting up voices that are too often squelched, in our society. I think that's something that I really strongly believe in.
Wow, I can't wait to to see what your project will turn out because it sounds just so meaningful, especially in our time.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, fingers crossed that it happens. Yeah, well, I think, one more thing that I've sort of been learning about myself during this time of not performing and not being on stage and sort of um, entering a more private experience with art is that I have so much more interest in art as a holistic endeavor than just art as my art as a musical, um, tunnel vision focus. And I think that's something that I always knew about myself, but maybe got lost along the way somehow. So these days I've been really reconnecting with, like, I had such a love of pottery growing up. Anyone who knows, like, has been into my apartment knows that I collect, um, like, handmade pottery from all over all my travels. I have an addiction. So I just love, beautiful, like, sculpture and pottery. And I've been learning how to mend that pottery using kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of putting gold in between the cracks of the broken pottery.
Yes, I know about that. Yeah.
And other things like, I mean, I'm in California right now, and being in California, just waking up every day and having the weather that we have, going to the farmer's market and enjoying nature's bounty of fruit and vegetables. And I mean, that's such a joy for me. Like, I mean, my other passion in life is food, and
Yes.
I adore being here, um, and seeing just how in touch, trying to be more in touch with nature, and find that that's so inspiring. And now that we're not performing, I think these things are honestly directly translating into daily production of art. Like I I find myself honestly more um creatively minded these days. Like I want to even discover more in the sonatas and partitas of Bach. Like I find myself so much more involved in the making of art of all sorts. So yeah, that's been kind of a beautiful thing these days. Not extra musically, and otherwise, yeah, I mean, I used to love to read, and
Yeah.
now I have time to read, and I need to start reading because not had I've not carved out the time for myself yet. But I have a long stack of books that are on my desk that I have yet to read. um, yeah, writing a lot actually. And
Oh, I see.
yeah, not only music, but but yeah, just writing. I
Mhm.
have a diary, and yeah, lots of little projects.
Mhm. Wow. Our life just goes by when we don't really actually be in the moment and face our emotion, whether it's happiness, fear, vulnerability, and all these emotions are actually so important for art. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you feel this too, but also traveling and doing what we do is I think I underestimated how much of a toll that was taking on my creative
Hmm.
self. And um yeah, I mean, just being with ourselves, I think is so valuable, and
Yeah.
something that I think, I hope that we'll all take from this time and apply it to our real lives. When things get back, it's if things get back, we'll see. But yeah, just to kind of carve out the time to make sure that ourselves are being fed properly, nourished.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that there's a lot of, I don't want to diminish anyone's hardship during this time. I think that each of us are on our own paths and our own sort of way of reckoning with this moment.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, of course, everyone's viewpoint and everyone's experience is a valid one for themselves. So I think first and foremost, I would like to offer that just because you see somebody doing something doesn't mean that you are, by you not doing something, you are failing. And by not being as creative as somebody, or by not doing something that you normally thought you had a deadline and you didn't meet it, I think all of this is fine. We all have our own trajectory and our own needs. um, and beyond that, I think in terms of the future and our art in the future, I am optimistic. I mean, I guess I'm an optimist by nature, but I'm optimistic because I see for myself, when I am looking at all of these Facebook live concerts from when concerts were actually happening, and they're rebroadcasted, and I tear up at so many of these concerts. It's like, wow, this experience of people congregating to view this event happening in real time is something that's valuable, so valuable to me. And I think if it's valuable to me, it's valuable to other people. And I know from having played so many concerts, and all of us, we're in contact with our audience members, and there's so many people who are thirsty for these live experiences and cherish them. And so I don't think that's going to go away. I think that what might need to happen is for people to really step up and, not just think about how we need to change this field, but do it, you know? Like, I think there's been so much talk forever about changing the archaic ways of classical music, and nobody's really cracked the code yet, of how to do that in a non-obnoxious, very, like, with a lot of integrity way. So um, I think people are working on that, and it'll be a new world when we emerge from this, but it'll be, I think, a beautiful one too. Like, I really have a lot of hope that we'll make it through this, but not only that, we will be stronger, we'll be more um attuned to modern life. I mean, just the fact that all of us are having to use technology and learn how to do all of this, that, like, other fields have. Or let's take another genre, like, okay, like an indie pop genre. People who self-release their albums have been doing this for like decades, right? They
Mhm.
know about microphones, they know about blah blah blah, and we as classical musicians have kind of been like, oh, I don't want to think about that for forever. So, people are adaptable, people are creative, and we'll find a way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I agree with you. And it seems like a very tough time, but maybe only through this sort of like challenges we can move forward together.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, one interesting thing that I've been thinking about is the Raging 20s that happened in 1920s, and it was like a flourishing of art and a flourishing of ideas and of fun and life that happened after, as we all know, the 1918 Spanish flu, right? Of course, it also happened after World War One, so it's like a different time. But I wonder if something like that will happen again. We'll kind of revive our feeling that art is really quite necessary, and that people really want to support and really want these experiences again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's been really, really wonderful to catch up with you. And as always, I feel that you're such a um, rich human being. Um, and yeah, I really hope that, sooner or later we can all get back to concert halls
Yeah.
in different settings. We can recreate music together. Yeah, and I hope you can use this time to walk more in nature and explore more literature, and yeah, I guess now you can spend more time with your family.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
a great thing.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, I wish all of that for you too. I mean, it's of course a scary time, but also, as you said, time to reconnect privately with yourself. And I think that's ultimately going to be very valuable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so nice to see you and catch up. And I'll look forward to the day that we can play together again
I
and
know.
be in one place and have a real two-sided conversation where I can ask you some of these things as well, because I'm curious to know
Mhm.
your
Thank
thoughts
you
as
so
well.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.